The door has 5 bolts. Not 1, not 2, 5. And every single morning, she counts them from the inside, not because she's forgotten how many there are, but because counting them is the only thing that reminds her that someone, somewhere, is still afraid of her. That is the only warmth she has left. My name is Blossom Arden. I am 22 years old. I have not felt sunlight on my skin since I was 3. I have not been held since before I can remember. I have not been called by my name, my actual name, not the broken one, or the wrong one, or the mistake we keep in the cellar in so long, that some mornings I whisper it to myself, just to make sure my mouth still knows how to shape it. Blossom, Blossom, still here. The room they keep me in sits at the bottom of my father's estate, deep in the foundation, below the kitchens, below the storage cellars, below everything that counts in Frost Peak. The walls are old stone, the kind that was never meant to be lived in, the kind that pulls heat out of the air the way water pulls heat out of skin. Slow, constant, merciless. The floor is white with frost most mornings, not the pretty kind, the kind that forms when nothing has been warm in a very long time. There is one window, too high to see through standing up, just wide enough to let in a gray strip of winter light for 2 hours every afternoon, and a blade of wind every single night that cuts through my clothes like they are tissue paper. Hi viewers, I need to ask you something personal right now. Has anyone in your life ever made you feel like you were the problem when deep down, you knew you weren't? Drop it in the comments. I need to know I'm not telling this story alone. I do not know exactly what I smell like to them. No one has ever described it to me directly, not with words, anyway. But I have watched it happen my whole life. The way my stepmother's face changes when she opens the door, the way my father takes a half step back, the way even the house servants find reasons to slide the food tray in without crossing the threshold and pull the door shut again fast, like breathing the same air as me for too long, is something to be avoided. My half-sisters Mira and Lena, the beautiful ones, the chosen ones, the ones with wolves that came in right on schedule at 16, like good wolves do. They used to hold their breath walking past my door. I could hear them doing it. 2 little inhales on the stairwell, then silence, then the exhale on the other side. Safe, relieved, back in the world that belonged to them. I used to wonder what it smelled like. What I smelled like. Was it rotten? Was it sour? Was it the particular smell of something decaying of a girl who had no wolf, no pack status, no rank, no future? Something so fundamentally wrong that the nose knew before the brain caught up? I asked my father once. I was maybe 7, maybe 8. Young enough to still believe that asking a direct question could get me a direct answer. He looked at me for a long time without saying anything, and then he said, very quietly, like he was telling me something for my own good, "You smell like something waiting, and nothing good waits that long." He closed the door. I heard the bolts go across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I sat down on the frost floor, and I did not cry. I was 7 years old, and I did not cry because even at 7, I already knew that crying required believing things could be different, and I had already started learning the hard, quiet way that for me, they could not. The cold that lives in this room is not like normal cold. Normal cold is temporary. Normal cold is the kind you feel on the walk between buildings, the kind that makes you wrap your coat tighter and think about hot coffee and warm rooms and the people waiting for you inside them. This cold has a personality. It settles into you. It finds the places where warmth used to live, the space behind your sternum, the crook of your elbows, the soft skin at the back of your knees, and it moves in like it owns them, like it has been waiting for exactly this much space. Like it knows you are not going anywhere. I have 19 years of this cold in my bones. 19 years. I stopped dreaming about being warm a long time ago. I stopped dreaming about most things. But tonight is different, and I cannot explain why. Tonight the cold feels restless, like it knows something I do not. Like even the frost on the walls is paying attention to something happening just outside the range of my senses. I pull my knees to my chest. I press my back against the far wall, the coldest one, the one that runs along the exterior of the foundation, the one that sweats ice no matter what season it is above ground. I close my eyes, and in the dark, in the specific silence of a room that has held my imprisonment for 19 years, I feel it. Not a sound, not a vibration, a pull. Something moving through the ground toward me the way weather moves before you can see it, felt in the chest before it arrives, known in the body before the mind has language for it. Something is coming. I have never felt anything like it in my life. And the 5 bolts on my door, the 5 bolts that have always kept me in, I look at them, and for the first time in 19 years, I wonder if they're about to keep something else out. The smell hits me before I hear anything. 1 second, there is nothing, just the usual silence of the frozen room, the faint groan of the estate above me, the distant sound of wind finding the gaps in the high window, and then something cuts through all of it, like a blade through still water. Pine, iron, and underneath both of those, something I have no name for. Something old. Older than the estate. Older than Frost Peak. Older than anything I have ever encountered in this small, cold corner of the world I have been allowed to inhabit. It is the most alive thing I have ever smelled. My body responds before my mind does. I am on my feet before I make the decision to stand. My back is off the wall. My chin is up. My hands have uncurled from their permanent half-fist of cold survival, all of it in one motion, one reflexive, full-body response to something I cannot see. My heart is doing something I do not have a word for. Not fear. Not exactly. Fear is familiar. Fear is the sound of the bolt going across. Fear is my stepmother's voice. Fear is the particular quality of silence that means something is about to get worse. This is not that. This is the feeling of standing at the edge of something, of the ground changing under your feet without warning, of the air itself becoming a different kind of air, charged and dense and waiting. I am waiting too. I do not know what I am waiting for. I press myself against the wall, not cowering, not hiding, just placing something solid against my back the way you do when you do not know what direction something is going to come from. And I watch the door. Nothing happens. A minute passes, maybe 2. The smell intensifies. This is the part I cannot explain to anyone who has not lived 19 years in a box of frozen stone, with no wolf, no pack, no status, no connection to the world of scent language that every other shifter in this kingdom takes for granted. I have spent my entire life being told that my scent is wrong, that it is the problem, that it is the thing that needs to be contained and hidden and locked behind 5 bolts and a wall of ice. I have never once been told what other scents feel like. No one ever bothered to explain to me that a scent could feel like this, like a hand pressing flat against your sternum from the inside, like warmth arriving somewhere you forgot was capable of receiving it, like recognition without a face attached. It fills the room. His scent fills my room, this freezing, frost-white, forgotten room, like it has every right to be here, like it has been in transit for a long time and has finally, simply, arrived. And then I hear it. Voices. Distant, then less distant. The specific sound of multiple people moving through a space that is not designed for multiple people. The narrow underground corridor that leads to my door, the one that only ever carries the footsteps of a single servant with a food tray. Multiple people. Heavy footsteps. And beneath them, steady and low and completely different from the rest. One set of footsteps that makes no sound at all. Not quiet because it is trying to be. Quiet because whatever is making it has so much control over its own body that silence is simply its default. That is the one I track. The others stop before they reach my door. I can feel the shift in the air, the way the corridor goes from movement to stillness, the way a group of bodies holds position while one keeps going. Just one, coming straight to my door. The bolts do not slide back. There is no fumbling, no key, no pause. There is a sound I have never heard before. A sound that I will spend the rest of my life trying to describe to people who were not in this room when it happened. The sound of stone being reminded that it is not, ultimately, the most powerful thing in the corridor. The wall to the left of my door cracks. Then it shatters, not slowly, not crumbling the way old stone crumbles, shattering the way ice shatters, explosive and sudden and all at once, and where there was wall, there is now a gap, and through the gap comes cold outside air, and the orange edge of torchlight, and a shape so large it has to turn sideways to fit through. It stops just inside the room. I do not move. It stands in the gap where my wall used to be, and it looks at me, and I look at it, and for 3 full seconds, neither of us does anything at all. It is a wolf. Not shifted, not entirely. Not the way wolves shift in the old stories, into something massive and unrecognizable. Still wearing the shape of a man, mostly. Still upright, mostly. But the eyes are wrong for a man. Too still. Too direct. The amber orange of something that lives entirely in the part of the mind that existed before language. He is the largest living thing I have ever seen in this small room. He is the most deliberately still. He is looking at me with those fire-colored eyes, and something is happening in them that I do not understand, something that is not aggression, not hunger, not the flat assessment of a threat being evaluated, something that makes the back of my throat ache with a feeling I have no framework for. Then he moves, not toward me, down. This enormous, terrifying, wall-destroying creature folds himself down onto one knee in my frost-white floor, in the ice and the cold and the poverty of this room, and he bows his head. He bows his head to me. I cannot breathe. I am a girl with no wolf, no rank, no worth by any measure this world has ever used to assess me. I am the broken one, the wrong one, the one locked behind 5 bolts. I have never had a person in my life treat me as though I was worth standing up straight for, let alone. He stays down. He is not moving. He is not rushing. He has all the stillness of a creature that understands patience at a cellular level, and has made a decision that is not going to change regardless of how long it takes for me to process it. And behind him, in the gap where my wall used to be, in the flickering orange light of the corridor, a shadow fills the doorway. Different. Still. Human-shaped in the way a force of nature is occasionally human-shaped, only because it has chosen to contain itself to those dimensions. I cannot see his face yet, but I can smell him. Same scent. The one that filled my room. Pine and iron and the old unnamed thing underneath. But stronger now. So strong it is almost a physical pressure. The way a storm is a physical pressure before it fully arrives. He is looking at me from the doorway. And the thing I feel, the thing that cuts straight through 19 years of being told I am nothing, 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 is that he is not looking at me like I am nothing. He is looking at me like I am the only thing in this room worth looking at. And he hasn't moved yet. He steps into the room. 1 step. Just one. But even 1 step from him changes the geometry of the space, the way the cold pulls back slightly, the way the torchlight shifts to accommodate him, the way the air itself seems to reorganize around the fact of his presence. He is tall in a way that is inconvenient for low ceilings. He has to drop his chin just slightly when he crosses the threshold, not ducking, not shrinking, just adjusting, the way a person adjusts to a space that was never built to hold anything as large as what they are. His eyes find mine immediately, not searching, not scanning the room first, assessing threat, calculating exits, the way I have seen every other powerful person who has ever entered a space do automatically. He looks at me first. He looks at me only, and I cannot move. I want to be clear about this. I am not frozen from fear. Not exactly, though fear is in the mix, threading through everything else I am feeling the way cold threads through heat. But it is not fear that is keeping my feet on the floor right now. It is something I have no name for. Something that feels like the first breath after being underwater for a very long time. He crouch, right there in the frost, in front of me. This man who arrived in the company of soldiers and war, and the kind of power that shatters stone walls without asking permission. He goes down to eye level, and he looks at me, at my face, at the specific configuration of someone who has been surviving the unsurvivable for 19 years, and has the face to show for it, not broken, not soft, not the face of someone who has given up, but the face of someone who is still, against all evidence, paying attention. He looks at me like he sees that. "How long?" he says, and his voice is low, controlled, the voice of a man who has learned to keep everything essential below the surface. "Have you been in this room?" My throat is not working right. "Since I was 3, I say. Something moves through his face. Fast, controlled. But I see it in the slight tightening at the corner of his jaw, in the way his eyes go very briefly somewhere internal, before coming back to me. "No more," he says. Just that. 2 words, delivered with the quiet, absolute finality of a man who does not make statements he does not intend to keep. He stands, and before I can process what is happening, before I can assemble the scene fast enough to have an opinion about it, his hands find the clasp of his cloak, and he pulls it off his shoulders and settles it around mine in one motion, deliberate, unhurried, like this is something he has already decided and is simply now executing. The cloak is heavy. It is warm in the way that only something that has been worn against a warm body can be warm, not the dead warmth of a blanket off a shelf, but living warmth, the warmth of him, already present in the fabric, settling around me like something that intended to be there. I go very still inside it. I have not been this warm since before I can remember. His warhound, still on one knee in the frost behind him, finally rises. He moves to stand at the alpha's left, and in the torchlight I get my first real look at him. Broad, dark, with those fire-colored eyes that are now watching me with a steadiness that feels oddly like the way you watch something you have been looking for, and have finally, simply, found. I look between them. 2 of the most physically overwhelming things I have ever been near in my life. Standing in my frozen room, in the frost, in the wreckage of my wall, as though this is simply where they were always going to end up. "Who are you?" I ask. Not to the warhound. To him, the alpha. He looks at me for a moment before he answers. Not reluctance, just the pause of a man deciding how much of a true answer to give. "Draven," he says. 1 word. Just his name. Not his title, not his rank, not the full weight of what he is, any of which I would have recognized immediately, even in the frozen room, even locked away from the world, because there is only one Alpha King in Ironvale and the stories about him travel through stone walls just fine. He gives me just his name. I do not know what to do with that. "Blossom," I say. Something happens in his expression at that. The softest thing I have seen on a face that appears to be structurally committed to showing very little. Like my name surprised him in a way he did not expect to be surprised. He nods, and then he lifts me. I need to tell you I did not ask to be lifted. I am not sure I would have consented to be lifted if he had asked, because I have 19 years of iron-wired independence, built out of the absolute necessity of needing no one, relying on nothing, surviving on my own terms because there were no other terms available to me. But he doesn't ask. He simply assesses, in about half a second, the fact that I am shaking badly enough that standing for an extended period is going to cost more than I have, and he picks me up, 1 arm under my knees, 1 at my back, clean and certain, and completely without ceremony. I am in the air before my pride can organize a response. My hands go to his chest automatically, not clinging, just steadying, finding the solid reality of him, because being picked up when you have not been touched in years is a genuinely disorienting physical event, and the warmth underneath my palms is extraordinary. He is carrying me out of the frozen room, past the warhound, through the broken wall, into the corridor, where I count without meaning to, just from years of this particular habit, the 5 bolts on my door as we pass them, hanging open and useless now, like they never mattered. They never mattered. Behind me, the frozen room goes dark. I do not look back. We are moving through the lower corridor toward the stairs, and the voices above are getting louder. The controlled chaos of the Alpha King's soldiers having a focused, efficient conversation with my father's household that is clearly going very much in one direction. And I am in the arms of the most dangerous man in the kingdom, wrapped in his cloak, and I am For the first time in my memory, warm, not comfortable, not safe, not in any way I know how to trust yet, but warm. And as we reach the bottom of the stairs, and the light from above spills down, and I hear my father's voice somewhere up ahead, tight, with something that is trying to be authority, and arriving only as fear-draven. Pause. Just for a second. He does not look at me. He looks straight ahead, but his arms already holding me shift. Settle. Pull me marginally closer, with the quiet deliberateness of a man adjusting his grip on something he does not intend to put down. And then so low, I am not certain I was meant to hear it. So quiet it might have just been an exhale with shape. Mine. I feel it more than I hear it. And above us, my father's voice stops mid-sentence. Like even from here, from 2 floors up, he felt it too, the ground shifting under everything he thought was his.
She weighs almost nothing. That is the first thing I notice when I lift her, not her face, not the frost in her hair, not the bare feet that have been on frozen stone long enough that the skin has gone the color of ash, the weight, or the absence of it, the way she settles into my arms, like a person who has been slowly, systematically stripped of everything a body needs to stay substantial. I have carried wounded soldiers off battlefields. I know what a body feels like when it has been pushed past what it should survive. She feels like that. And she is not wounded. She has not been in a war. She has simply been in that room, that frost-white, 5-bolt room for 19 years, and the result is the same. The result is always the same. When you take something living and put it somewhere designed to diminish it, it gets smaller. My wolf is not quiet about this. He has not been quiet since the moment Cain stopped eating 3 days ago and stood at the tree line with his nose in the wind. My wolf felt it before I had language for it, that pull, low in the chest, directional, insistent, the kind of feeling that does not ask for permission and does not respond to logic. I have ruled a kingdom for 11 years, on the understanding that I do not act on impulses I cannot explain. For 3 days, I have been explaining this one to myself in every rational framework available to me. None of them held, because none of them accounted for this, for the specific reality of her, for the way she looked at me when I crouched in front of her. Not with the fear I expected, and not with the gratitude I would have found unbearable, but with this careful, measuring, still paying attention wariness that hit me somewhere behind the sternum like a closed fist. She is still paying attention. After everything they did to her, she is still paying attention. I carry her up the stairs. Her hands are flat against my chest, not gripping, just present, just making contact with something solid the way a person does when the ground has been unreliable for too long. I can feel the cold of her palms through 3 layers of clothing. I can feel the slight involuntary trembling that runs through her every few seconds, fine and constant, the shaking of a body that has been burning its own reserves for warmth for so long it has forgotten how to stop. My cloak is already around her shoulders. It is not enough. Not yet, but it is mine. It carries my heat and my scent, and something in me, the part that lives below reason, below rank. Below 11 years of learning to want nothing, I cannot strategically justify that part went very quiet the moment the cloak settled around her. Quiet the way things go quiet when they have been waiting for a long time and have finally stopped waiting. We clear the top of the stairs. The main hall of Frost Peak is not a comfortable scene. My men have the household contained, not roughly. I do not operate roughly when it is not necessary, and it is not necessary here, because nothing in this estate constitutes a genuine threat to anyone in my company but firmly servants along one wall. The 2 half-sisters in the corner by the fireplace, holding each other with the stunned, wide-eyed look of people watching the architecture of their entire world rearrange in real time. And her father, Aldrich Arden, Pack Elder of Frost Peak, a man who built his entire identity on the controlled presentation of strength, the right clothes, the right lineage, the right daughters presented at the right social events, the right story told about his household, to the right people for the right number of years. He is standing at the center of the hall. He sees me come up the stairs, Then he sees what I am carrying. His face does something complicated. Guilt and fear and the specific calculation of a man trying to determine in real time how much trouble he is in. I watch him run the numbers. I watch him arrive at an answer he does not like. He opens his mouth. Alpha King, if I may explain. You may not, I say. I do not raise my voice. I never raise my voice in these situations. Volume is for people who are not certain they will be heard. I am always certain. He closes his mouth. I am aware of Blossom, in my arms going very still. Not the trembling stillness of cold, a different kind. The stillness of a person who is braced, who has heard that voice her whole life and has learned, at a cellular level, to make themselves small when it speaks. I hold her closer. Not a display. Not for the room. For her, so that whatever her body is bracing against, it has something solid to brace against instead of empty air. Her hands press fractionally harder against my chest. I keep walking. Ren falls into step at my left. He has the good sense to say nothing. Ren always has the good sense to say nothing when my face is doing what my face is apparently doing right now, which I am aware of and am not particularly concerned about managing at this moment. Kane moves to my right. We cross the hall. Her father's voice comes from behind me, higher now, the calculation giving way to something more desperate. She has no wolf. She is nothing. She cannot be what you think she is. The elders examined her twice. I stop. I do not turn around. The hall goes completely silent. I speak to the wall in front of me, to the door, to the cold night air beyond it, because I do not need to face a man to make certain he understands me. The elders were wrong, I say, and so were you. And everything you built on that mistake, every year of it is going to find its own consequences. Without my help, I push the door open with my shoulder. The night air hits us cold, sharp, smelling of pine and ice, and the particular darkness of the Frost Peak Valley and Blossom turns her face into my neck. Not intentional. I do not think she means to do it. I think it is the cold, the automatic flinch of a body that has been conditioned to protect the warmth it has found. But her face is in the curve of my throat, and her breath is warm against my skin, and my wolf goes so still he might as well be stone. Do not move, he says. Not in words, just in the absolute suspension of every other impulse. Do not move, or she'll stop. I do not move. I carry her to the horse. Ren is already there, holding the reins, and I see the exact moment he registers the situation. The girl in my arms, my cloak around her shoulders, the expression on my face that I am not currently regulating, and his eyebrows go somewhere near his hairline. He opens his mouth. I look at him. He closes it. He hands me the reins. He walks away with the purposeful stride of a man who has decided that some things are above his pay grade. Smart man. Ren has served me for 8 years. He knows that there are levels of my silence. There is the silence that means I am thinking. There is the silence that means I have already decided. And there is this one, the one currently occupying my face, which Ren correctly identifies as the silence that means this is not a topic that exists. I settle onto the horse. Blossom ends up in front of me. Not because I planned it, not because I announced it or arranged it or gave anyone in my company advance notice that the Alpha King of Ironvale would be riding the next 4 days with a woman in his lap like some kind of I am not completing that thought. It is simply the only arrangement that makes structural sense. She is still shaking. The night is below freezing. She has no body fat left to spare on keeping herself warm. No wolf to generate the sustained heat that keeps a shifter alive in these temperatures. No coat, no boots, no anything except the cloak I gave her and whatever warmth she can pull from proximity to me. I am proximity to her. That is the logic. That is the only logic I am choosing to examine right now. She sits against my chest, tucked inside my arms as I hold the reins, and for a long moment after the horse moves, she is completely rigid, every muscle locked, every breath shallow and controlled, the physical language of someone who has not been held in so long that being held feels like a threat that has to be monitored. I say nothing. I do not try to soften it. I do not try to explain. I simply ride. And I let her be rigid if she needs to be rigid. And I wait. Kane rides to my left. He is watching the tree line with those amber eyes, and he looks, for the first time in 3 days, completely settled. Like a frequency that was off has corrected itself. Like everything in him that was restless has gone still. I understand that feeling exactly. The road north is dark and long, and the stars over Frost Peak are the particular dense. Brilliant kind. You only get at altitude in winter. The kind that make the sky look like someone pressed too hard on a piece of black cloth, and the light underneath bled through in 1,000 places. She looks up at them. I feel her doing it, the slight tilt of her head back, the way her breathing changes from tight to something fractionally more open, like the sky is something she forgot about, like she is relearning the fact of it in real time. Her voice, when she speaks, is rough, underused. Where are we going? Iron Vale, I say. A pause. How far? 4 days. She processes this, and then what happens to me? There it is. The real question. The one underneath the geography, underneath the logistics, underneath everything else. What am I to you? What is this? What does a girl like me, no wolf, no rank, no value by any measure this world uses, what does she become in the kingdom of the Alpha King? She does not ask it that way. She keeps it small. What happens to me? The phrasing of someone who is used to their future being a thing that happens to them rather than a thing they participate in. Something in my chest turns over. That, I say, is going to be your decision. She goes still, like I said something in a language she recognizes, but was not expecting to hear from me. My decision, she repeats. Yes. She is quiet for a long moment. Then, very carefully, like someone testing the structural integrity of a floor before putting their full weight on it. No one has ever said that to me before. I know, I say. She does not respond, but the rigidity in her that locked, monitored, threat-assessing tension releases. Not completely, not all at once, just a degree. The way a door that has been bolted for a very long time can be unbolted without swinging open. Unbolted is enough. She leans back, just slightly. Just the weight of her shoulders settling against my chest instead of holding themselves deliberately forward. My wolf makes a sound I do not have words for. I focus on the road. I focus very deliberately on the road, because the alternative is focusing on the fact that she is warm now, finally, slowly, incrementally warm, and that the warmth is coming from me, and that something about that specific fact is rearranging things inside me that I spent 11 years arranging very carefully and do not currently have the bandwidth to rearrange back. 4 days to Iron Vale. 4 days in which I will ride with her against my chest and keep my face neutral and not examine too closely the reason why handing her to a guard or a servant or even to Kane, who she has no reason to fear, was never an option I actually considered. 4 days, and she will be in my kingdom, in my walls, under my protection. My wolf does not say mine again. He doesn't need to. He already said it once. And we both know, once was enough. She is asleep before the second hour. I feel the exact moment it happens. The last of the deliberate tension draining out of her shoulders, her breathing going long and slow and deep, her head dropping back against my collarbone. With the particular weight of unconsciousness, the full surrender of a body that has been running on fumes for longer than it should have had to. She does not twitch. She does not dream, or if she does not show it. She simply goes under, like a person jumping off a high ledge into still water, fast, complete. I wonder how long it has been since she slept without one ear on the door. I think about those 5 bolts, and I stop wondering. I know. Ren rides up beside me around the 3rd hour. He looks at the girl asleep against my chest. He looks at my face. He looks back at the road. So, he says, "Don't," I say. I wasn't going to say anything. You were constructing the opening sentence of a very long series of observations that I do not want. He is quiet for a moment. She's the one Kane tracked, he says finally. Yes, Kane doesn't track people. No, I agree. He doesn't. Another pause. You're not going to tell me what that means. I'm going to keep riding north, Ren. He nods slowly. He rides back to his position. Kane, from my left, says nothing. He has said almost nothing since we left the estate, but every few miles he turns his head toward her, not a threat assessment, not a scan, just a check. The way you check on something you have been responsible for finding, and are now responsible for keeping found. I understand that too. The pull that brought us here, the one that started in my chest 3 days out and built steadily until it was the loudest thing in me, it has not stopped. It has changed. Instead of directional, it is now anchoring. A weight in the center of my body, tied to the specific location of her, calibrated to her breathing and her warmth, and the way her weight shifts against me when the horse adjusts its pace. I am aware of her, the way I am aware of my own heartbeat. Constant, involuntary, entirely outside my control. I was not prepared for this. I should be honest about that. I have ruled a kingdom. I have won wars. I have made decisions in the space of 30 seconds that shaped the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, and carried those decisions without doubt and without apology, because that is what it means to hold the position I hold. I was not prepared for a barefoot girl in a torn dress on a frost floor to dismantle something in me that I did not know was standing. She shifts in her sleep. Her hand, the one resting against my chest, opens, palm flat. Like even unconscious, some part of her is checking that the warmth is still there. It is still there. My grip on the reins tightens once, then releases. We ride through the night. By the time the sky starts its slow move from black to the deep bruised blue of very early morning, she is still asleep, and I have spent approximately 4 hours not thinking about the fact that I have not wanted to put her down once. Not when my arm went stiff around the second hour. Not when Renee needed a decision about the route. Not when Kane pulled ahead to scout, and for 8 minutes it was just me and her and the dark and the sound of the horse's hooves on frozen ground. Not once. I have carried plenty of things in my life that I did not want to put down. A throne. A war. My father's shadow. None of them felt like this. None of them were warm. She wakes on the morning of the second day, when the sun clears the tree line and hits her face at an angle that changes the light behind her closed eyes. I feel her come back, the gradual reassembly of consciousness, the shift from stillness to awareness, the moment the body remembers where it is and tightens slightly against the memory of where it was. Her breathing changes. Still here, I say quietly, before she can tighten further. Before whatever her waking mind is preparing to brace against can fully organize itself. She stops mid-tighten. A pause. Still here, she says, like she is confirming it, like she is testing the sentence to see if it holds weight. Still here, I say again. She relaxes. It is the smallest thing. It is the largest thing. We stop midday, at a creek still running, barely. The water moving slow and dark under a skim of ice at the edges. My men water the horses. Someone produces food from the supply packs, and Renee personally brings a portion to Blossom, which tells me that Renee has made some kind of internal decision about her that he has chosen not to announce but is clearly acting on. She eats carefully. Not fast, not the way someone eats when they have been denied food. Carefully. Like she is paying close attention to the experience of eating something warm in the open air by running water in the gray winter daylight, cataloging each part of it, keeping it. I watch her do this, and I feel something in my chest that I have no tactical use for whatsoever. She catches me watching. She does not look away. Neither do I. That goes on for longer than it should. You're staring, she says. I am. I agree. She waits for me to stop or explain. I do neither. A very small thing happens at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile, not fully. Something working its way toward one from a long distance. My wolf wakes up like someone threw cold water on him. I look back at the creek. The afternoon is uneventful, in the way that afternoons are uneventful. When you are riding through the kind of country that was beautiful once and is waiting to be beautiful again, the gray-brown plains of the Iron Vale, borderlands, drought-stripped and brittle, the grass is flat and pale, the riverbeds we cross every few hours running low or dry or gone entirely. 7 years of this. 7 years of watching my kingdom go thirsty by degrees, of receiving the reports and allocating the resources and managing the consequences without ever being able to fix the source. The advisors have explanations. The elders have theories. I have been waiting. For what? I could not have told you 3 days ago. On the morning of the 3rd day, something changes in the air. I feel it before I understand it, a shift in pressure. The particular heaviness that precedes weather, the way the atmosphere goes dense and low and charged. I look at the sky, gray, the specific gray of clouds that are carrying something and have been carrying it long enough to be heavy with it. Blossom, in front of me, go still. Not the bracing stillness of threat. Different. She tilts her face up, eyes closed, lips slightly parted like a person reading the sky with their skin. Do you feel that? She asks. Yes, I say. What is it? I look at the clouds, at her face, at the light on her skin. That is not quite the light I would expect from this flat, cloud-covered morning. Something warmer, something that seems to be coming from slightly the wrong direction. I'm not sure yet, I say. She opens her eyes. She looks at her hands. I look at her hands too. Between her fingers, faint, barely visible, the kind of thing you would dismiss as a trick of the light if you were not paying very close attention, there is a luminescence, pale, moving, like light trapped in water, like light that belongs there. My wolf is not still anymore. He is fully awake, fully forward, fully present, in a way that he has not been in 11 years of ruling, not in battle, not in negotiation, not in any of the 1,000 situations I have moved through, with the controlled, managed, leashed version of him that keeps a kingdom functional. He is pressing against the inside of my chest like he wants out. Not to shift. Not for that. Just to be closer to her. Just to close the 6 inches of air between us that the logistics of riding have left. Just to remove any remaining ambiguity about what he has decided. I hold him. Not yet, I tell him. He disagrees. Emphatically. Draven, my name, in her mouth. She has said it once before, the night I told it to her, a repetition, testing the shape of it. This is different. This is her using it to get my attention, to pull me back from wherever I just went, to ask something she does not have language for yet. I look at her. She holds her hands up between us, those glowing, luminescent hands, and she looks at me with the expression of someone who has just found evidence that contradicts everything they were ever told about themselves. What am I? She asks. Not afraid. Not frantic. Just asking. Asking me, specifically. Like she has decided, in the 3 days of riding and the warmth and the still here and the way I watch her without stopping, that I might be the one person in the world who will answer that question without making her smaller. I reach forward. My hand covers hers. Both of them. Covers both her hands. The glow and the cold. And the 19 years of being told those hands carried something wrong. I cover all of it with mine and I hold something they were very afraid of, I say. For very good reason. She stares at me. Is that supposed to be reassuring? She asks. It's supposed to be honest. She looks at our hands, at the way the glow has intensified under my palms, warmer now, stronger, the light bleeding out between my fingers, like it is responding to contact, like it recognizes me. My wolf makes a sound that I feel in every bone I own. And then, above us, around us, filling the gray, brittle sky over 7 years of drought-stripped land, the clouds open. It does not drizzle. It does not start slow. It pours. The sound hits, before the cold does a wall of sound. The roar of 7 years of held water releasing all at once, striking the dry ground with the force of something that has been waiting longer than patience should allow. My men shout. Horses react. Someone behind me says something that gets lost in the noise. Blossom does not react. She sits in front of me with her face turned up and her hands open and the rain hitting her like it knows her. like it has found what it was looking for and is not being gentle about it, and her eyes are closed and the glow on. Her skin is not fading. It is brightening. I am soaked through in 30 seconds. My men are scrambling for cover that does not exist. The road is turning to mud around the horses' hooves, and the dry creek beds in the distance are already starting to run, with the sound of water finding its way home. None of that is what I am looking at. I am looking at her, at the specific quality of her face in this moment, open, unguarded, turned towards something she was told was not for her and receiving it anyway, receiving it completely, like the sky has been holding this specifically for her, and she always, quietly, knew it. I reach up. My thumb crosses her cheekbone, rain-wet, finally warm, and I stop there. She opens her eyes. We are completely soaked. The world is noise and water and the sound of a kingdom remembering how to drink. My men are somewhere behind us being professionally stoic about getting drenched. She looks at me with those eyes that have been paying attention her whole life, and finally have something worth looking at directly. You brought it, I say. Low, just for her. The rain. 7 years and you walked across the border and it came. She shakes her head slightly. I didn't do anything. You existed, I say. In the right place. Sometimes that's the whole thing. She goes quiet. The rain falls between us and around us and into the cracked earth of the Iron Vale borderlands, and somewhere, distantly, I can already hear the sound of water moving in places that have been silent for 7 years. She is still looking at me. I am still holding her cheekbone. Neither of us moves. And then, from somewhere behind us, in the company, in the voice of a man who has clearly decided that this is a development requiring immediate commentary, Ren says, loudly enough to be heard over the rain, "Well, that answers that question." Kane, without looking back, says, "Be quiet, Ren." Rennie is quiet. Blossom makes a sound, a short, involuntary, completely unexpected sound. I look at her. She is laughing. Not much. Not loud. Just a small, surprised sound that escapes before she can stop it, like something that has been locked away for just as long as she has and has found the same unexpected exit. I look at her laughing in the rain, in my arms, on my horse, with her hands still glowing and the whole sky pouring itself out around us. And I think, my father told me I would know my queen when the land recognized her before I did. He said it once, years ago. I thought it was old language. I thought it was the kind of thing powerful men say to their sons when they want them to believe that fate is manageable. I did not think. I stopped thinking. She is still laughing, quiet and careful and unused, like a muscle that has not moved in years, like something remembering how. And I realize with the particular clarity of a man who does not lie to himself that I would burn every fortress in this kingdom down to the stone if it meant keeping her laughing. And I have not even told her yet what Kane found in the frozen room before I walked in, what was written on the wall, what she drew in the frost as a child, without knowing what it meant, without knowing that only one bloodline in the history of this kingdom has ever drawn that mark. Mine.
He is still holding my face when the laughing stops. Not because something sad replaces it. Not because I remember myself and pull back into the careful, small version of me that knows how to take up less space. It stops because the weight of his hand on my cheekbone becomes the loudest thing in my body, and I cannot laugh and feel that at the same time. I do not have enough room for both. His thumb is not moving. It is just there, warm and certain, and completely still. The way he is still not passive, not absent, but the stillness of a person who has made a decision and is waiting for the world to catch up to it. The rain is still coming down hard around us. I am soaked through completely. My hair is flat against my neck. His cloak, heavy with water, is doing less for warmth now and more for the specific comfort of having something of his wrapped around me, which I am aware of and am choosing not to examine too carefully. I look at his hand on my face. Then I look at him. He does not look away. I have spent 19 years invisible. Not metaphorically. Functionally. The people in my life looked through me, The way you look through a window registering that something is there. The glass, the frame, the structural fact of it, but focused entirely on what is on the other side. I was the window. I was the thing between them and what they actually wanted to see. Draven Ashvale does not look through me. He looks at me with the full, undivided, unmanaged attention of a man who has decided that this is exactly where his eyes belong, and the intensity of it is almost more than I know how to receive. Almost. My hands are in my lap. The glow has faded to something low and constant, not gone, just settled, the way a fire settles after the initial flare. I look at my palms, at the faint warmth moving under my skin like something that has been waiting its whole life to have a name. He said I brought the rain. I did not do anything. I walked across a border. I existed in the right place. He said sometimes that is the whole thing. I do not know how to hold that. I do not know how to hold most of what has happened in the last 3 days. The room with no bolts, the warmth, the sky opening like it was waiting specifically for me to be under it. Him. His horse shifts beneath us and he adjusts automatically, his arm tightening around me for 1 second during the movement, not a squeeze, not deliberate, just the body doing what it does when it is keeping something from falling and then staying there. His arm stays around me after the horse settles. He does not move it back. I do not say anything about it. We ride in the rain for another hour before Wren calls for a halt at a supply outpost, a low stone structure off the main road, large enough for the men to get under cover, dry their gear, eat something hot. Draven dismounts first. Then he lifts me down, his hands at my waist. My hands going to his shoulders without my permission, just finding them. Just landing there the way hands land on something solid when the ground is suddenly closer than expected. He sets me on my feet, and his hands stay at my waist for exactly 1 second longer than necessary. 1 second. I count it. 19 years of nothing, and I am standing in a muddy road in the rain, counting the seconds a man's hands stay at my waist. I step back. He lets me. Inside the outpost, someone has already built a fire fast, efficient, the specific competence of people who work for a man who does not tolerate slowness when it is cold, and his people need warming. I stand near it, and the heat reaches me in layers, working through the wet and the cold from the outside in. And I close my eyes for a moment and just receive it. Renee appears at my elbow with a bowl of something hot. Grain and root vegetables, and a broth that smells like herbs I do not have names for. He hands it to me without ceremony, without preamble, without the specific quality of charity that makes the recipient feel like a project. Just hands it over like it is simply the next logical thing. Thank you, I say. Don't thank me, he says. I'm running out of reasons to be surprised today, and I need to conserve what I have left. I look at him. There is something in his face around the eyes, at the corners of his mouth, that is warm in the way of a person who has decided something about you privately and is acting on it without making it a whole event. I eat. Draven sits across the fire from me. He has a bowl too. He is eating. He is also watching me eat, not monitoring, not assessing, watching the way you watch something you find genuinely interesting, the way you watch a fire, attentive without agenda. I eat every last drop. For the first time since I was 3 years old, I am warm on the inside and the outside at the same time, and I am aware with a clarity that is new to me, that arrived sometime in the last 3 days without announcing itself, that the warmth from the fire and the warmth from the food are good, solid, real things. But the warmth sitting across the fire from me, watching me eat with that quiet, undivided attention, that one is doing something entirely different to my insides. And I do not have a single piece of experience or framework or self-protection strategy that tells me what to do with that. Known. We reach Ironvale on the 4th day, just before sunset. I see the walls from 2 miles out, dark stone, massive, built in the old style with towers at every corner and gates wide enough to ride an army through. The kind of walls that do not apologize for existing. The kind that say clearly and without decoration, everything inside here is protected. I have never been inside walls like that. I have only ever been inside the kind that kept things in. The gates open before we reach them. No signal that I see, just open, as if the walls themselves know who is coming and have already decided to make way. The guards at the top straighten as Draven rides through, not the stiff, performative attention of men afraid of their commander. The particular respect of people who have been led well and know it. He rides through his own gates like he is simply returning to a place that has been waiting for him, which he has. The city inside the walls is larger than anything I have ever seen, larger than Frost Peak's estate, larger than the village surrounding it, larger than anything my 6-foot ceiling and high window had allowed me to imagine when I pressed my cheek to the cold stone and tried to picture the world outside. Streets and buildings and people moving in the last light of the day, and the smell of cook fires and horses and rain-wet stone, and underneath all of it, the particular living smell of a place that holds many, many people who are not cold and not alone, and not locked behind 5 bolts. It smells like life. I breathe it in until my lungs ache. Draven's hand presses flat against my stomach for half a second light, quick as the horse navigates a turn through a narrow street, and I shift forward. Not a hold, not a claim, just a reflex. His body keeping track of mine the way it has been doing for 4 days without him appearing to think about it. I have started noticing every single time. I have a running count. Ren would probably find this concerning if he knew. Kane probably already knows, and has filed it under none of my business in the same drawer as everything else he observes, and does not discuss. The castle sits at the center of Ironvale, not elevated dramatically on a hill the way the stories describe castles, not staged for visual impact. Just there, solid and enormous, like it was always going to be exactly here, and the city grew up around it as a natural consequence. I am given a room, not a cellar, not a room below anything. A room with a ceiling high enough that I cannot touch it standing on my toes. A room with a window, a real window, floor height, wide, looking out over a courtyard where a fountain is running again with fresh water, fed by the same rain that has been following me for 4 days. A room with a fireplace already lit, and a bed with actual weight to it, the kind of weight that means warmth held in fabric, warmth that will still be there in the morning. A woman named Petra shows me in. She is compact and efficient, and speaks to me without the careful distance people use around things they are uncertain about. Bath is being drawn, she says. Clothes on the chair are yours. Don't argue about the fit. I guessed, and I'm good at guessing. Food comes in an hour. She leaves. I stand in the middle of the room. Real floor, not frost-white stone. Dark wood, worn smooth, warm under my bare feet in a way that makes my throat tighten unexpectedly. I walk to the window. The courtyard below is lit with torches, and the fountain is running, and the rain is still falling soft now, not the hard roar of the borderlands, but something that has found its rhythm, easy and constant and present. People are moving below, going about the end of their day, and several of them have stopped to look at the fountain with the expression of people who have been waiting for something for a long time, and are slightly stunned to find it arrived. I put my hand against the glass. The glow comes, faint and immediate, and where my palm presses the window, the rain on the other side hits the glass in a pattern that is not random. It runs in lines, follows the edges of my fingers, like it knows where I am, like it has always known. I hear the door. Not a knock, not an entrance, just the sound of someone stopping outside it, the particular quality of a pause that is deciding whether to proceed. Blossom. Draven. I do not turn around. The door is not locked, I say. A beat. I know, he says, through the door. I wanted to check that you knew. I turn around then, just to look at the door, at the fact of him on the other side of it, choosing to stop and ask instead of entering, choosing to make the point that this door, this particular door, operates differently from the last one I lived behind. I know, I say. A pause. Good, he says. I hear him step back from the door. I hear his footsteps moving away down the corridor, not quickly, not in retreat, just moving, the easy, unhurried movement of a man who said what he came to say, and is satisfied. I turn back to the window. My hand is still on the glass. The rain is still following my fingers. I stand there for a long time, in the warm room, in the firelight, with the rain writing something on the glass in the language of water on stone, and I think about the mark on the wall of my frozen room, the one Kane found, the one Draven has not yet told me about, the one I drew as a child in the frost without knowing what it meant. He said he would tell me. He has not told me yet, and I understand, with the particular patience of someone who has learned to wait for everything, I understand that when he does tell me, everything I think I know about who I am and where I came from, and why they were so afraid of what I smelled like, all of it is going to change. The message arrives on the 6th morning. Not a letter. A messenger, one of my father's household runners, a young man I recognize from the estate, arriving at the Iron Veil gate with the look of someone who has ridden hard for days and has not been told whether the person he is delivering to will receive him kindly. Petra brings me the message herself. She sets it on the table where I am eating breakfast, actual breakfast, hot and substantial, and served at a table by a window in full morning light, which I am still not accustomed to and am not pretending to be accustomed to, because some things should not be rushed, and she says nothing, which tells me she has some idea of what it contains. I open it. My father's handwriting. Neat, controlled, the penmanship of a man who understands that how you present things matters as much as what you are presenting. The trading partners have withdrawn, 3 of them. Old arrangements, gone. The frost roses are dead. The east wall has cracked. And then, at the bottom, in slightly less controlled handwriting, slightly more pressure on the pen, the kind of pressure that happens when the hand is carrying something the mind does not want to say out loud, 8 words. We need the rain. Please. Whatever it costs. I set the letter down. I look at it for a long moment, and I wait for something. Anger. Satisfaction. The particular dark warmth of watching the people who hurt you finally feel the shape of what they built. I have imagined this moment in 100 different forms in the frozen room. The accounting. The arrival of consequence. The moment the floor drops out from under the people who spent 19 years dropping it out from under me. It does not feel the way I imagined. It feels quiet, not empty, not forgiving, just quiet. The way a storm goes quiet after it has already done everything it came to do. I fold the letter. I set it on the corner of the table. I finish my breakfast. Draven finds me an hour later in the courtyard, standing by the fountain, watching the water run. He does not ask how I am. He sits on the stone edge of the fountain and waits, which is one of the things I have learned about him in 6 days. He has an extraordinary capacity for waiting, for simply being present without filling the space with words that are not needed. My father wrote, I say. I know, he says. My gate captain told me. Frost Peak is struggling. Yes. The drought is spreading south from the borderlands. It will reach them by next season if I stop. If you're not there, he says. Not a question. Just completing the geography. If the rain doesn't follow that far, I say carefully. He looks at me. You're going to help them. Not a question either. I'm going to help the people there who didn't put me in that room, I say. The servants, the village, the children in the valley. I pause. My father's household gets the minimum that keeps them from collapsing completely. Not because they deserve it, because the people around them do. He is quiet for a moment. You know, he says, most people in your position would burn the whole thing down and feel completely justified. I know, I say, but you're not going to. No. Why? I look at the fountain, at the water running clean and constant from a source that was dry a week ago. Because I know what it feels like, I say, to be on the receiving end of someone using power to punish. I spent 19 years as the target of it. I turn and look at him. I'm not becoming that. Not for anyone. Not even for the satisfaction of it. He looks at me for a long time. That expression again, the one that is not performing, not calculating, not managing, the one that simply receives me, all of me, without reduction. Ren is going to lose his mind, he says quietly, when he realizes I am completely gone for a woman who just chose mercy over revenge before breakfast. My stomach does a full, involuntary turn. I look back at the fountain. You should not say things like that, I say. Probably not, he agrees. He does not sound sorry about it. From the north corner of the courtyard, we both hear René's voice, not the words, just the tone. The voice of a man delivering news he is not entirely pleased about. Draven stands. He looks at me one more time. Whatever you decide about Frost Peak, he says, I will back it. Completely. No conditions. He walks toward René. I stand at the fountain and feel the weight of that sentence settle into me. Whatever you decide, I will back it. And I try to remember if anyone has ever said anything like that to me in my entire life. I cannot find a single instance. Not one. And then from René's direction, in a tone I have not heard from him before, something stripped of his usual careful composure, I hear him say 4 words that make every hair on my body stand up. The family is here. Already. They did not wait for an answer. They came. They look smaller than I remember. That is the first thing I notice when I walk into the receiving hall and see them standing there. My father, my stepmother, Mira, Lena, 4 people who occupied the entire architecture of my world for 19 years, who were so large in my mind that the frozen room was not just a room, but a universe they controlled entirely. They look like people. Just people. Diminished is the right word. Not ruined, not yet, but as if something that was propping them up from the inside has been quietly removed and the outside has not fully registered it yet. My stepmother's skin has lost that particular cold glass quality that was always her most powerful social weapon. Mira and Lena are standing close together in the way of people who need the reassurance of contact. My father is in his second best coat. I know it is his second best because I have spent years listening to the household above me and learning people from sound and detail when you cannot see them directly. His best coat would not have that repair at the left cuff. He is nervous enough that he did not notice he grabbed the wrong one. I stand in the entrance of the hall. Draven is not in front of me. He is not beside me in a way that announces itself. He is simply present, somewhere slightly behind my right shoulder, in the specific position of a person who is absolutely available and absolutely not interfering. His choice of placement is so deliberate that I feel it the way you feel weather in the body, before you can name it. He is letting me lead. Completely. My father sees me, and something moves across his face that I do not have a clean name for. Not guilt. Guilt is something you feel in private, in the gap between what you did and what you knew was right. This is the public version of it. The version that knows it is being observed and is trying to find the correct expression. He does not find it. Blossom, he says, my name in his mouth. I notice that he says it differently now. Not flat, not clinical, not the way you state a fact about weather. He says it carefully, like a word he has reconsidered. 19 years too late. Father, I say, I do not move toward him. I do not soften my posture, or drop my chin, or make myself smaller in any of the 1,000 ways I spent years making myself smaller to reduce the friction of existing in his space. I stand exactly where I am. My stepmother's eyes move past me to Draven, behind me, and then around the room, taking inventory the way she always took inventory, assessing status and leverage and positioning. She was always good at that. She is not finding what she is looking for. What she is finding instead is Cain, standing against the right wall, like a piece of architecture that has opinions, and René near the door with the specific expression of a man who is professionally neutral about everything and is working very hard at it right now. Lena looks at me with something that might be shame. Mira looks at the floor. My father clears his throat. We came because the situation at Frost Peak has become... I know what the situation is, I say. I received your letter. He stops. I've already decided what I'm going to do, I say. He waits. Behind me, I am aware of Draven not moving. Not a muscle. Just there. Present. A wall facing outward. Exactly as he was when he carried me through my own front door 6 days ago. I'm releasing 3 of the trading contracts back to you, I say. The Millhaven grain route, the Valley Wool Exchange, and the northern timber arrangement. Not as a gift. As a restoration of what those traders chose to do before your household situation changed their confidence. They'll come back when the drought breaks. My father blinks. Yes, that would. The drought will break when I determine that the people it is affecting most, the village families, the household servants, the valley farmers, are receiving direct relief from Iron Vale's stores. That arrangement will be coordinated through Wren. I pause. Not through you. Silence. My stepmother's jaw tightens. The relief goes to the people, I say, looking at her directly. Not to the estate budget, not to the household accounts, not to whatever Mira's dowry situation currently looks like. I pause. To the people. Mira flinches. I am not doing this to wound her. I am doing this because I have spent 6 days in a kingdom where Draven Ashvale directs resources the same way to the people who need them, not the people who control them, and I have watched what it produces. I have watched the people in this city move with the ease of those who believe their needs will be met. I have watched what it looks like when power is used in service of the living instead of in service of itself. I want that. For the people in the valley who had nothing to do with my frozen room, and my father's household, I say, you receive what maintains the basic function of the estate, nothing more. The silence in the hall is very full. My father looks at me for a long moment. I watch him process the complete inversion of every power structure he spent 19 years constructing the girl from the cellar, the broken one, the wrong-smelling one, standing in the Alpha King's receiving hall setting terms that he has no leverage to negotiate. The east wall, he says quietly, not a demand, almost small. It's cracking badly. I look at him. For one long second, I look at my father, at the man who locked me away for 19 years and called it management, and I wait for the hardness that should be there. The clean, righteous refusal. It does not come. What comes instead is something more complicated. Something that has been working its way through me since the moment I read his letter and felt quiet instead of triumphant. Something that understands not excuses, not forgives, but understands that people do the worst things they are capable of when they are afraid, and that my father has been afraid of me, specifically, for as long as I have been alive. That is not absolution. It is just fact. I'll have Iron Vale's stonemasons assess it, I say. Once the relief coordination is confirmed. He closes his eyes. When he opens them, something in them is different. Not the calculating presentation of a pack elder managing optics. Something underneath it. Something that looks, briefly, like a man who is very tired and very sorry and does not have enough years left to fix what he spent the first half of his life building. Thank you, he says. Enod once. Then I look at Mira and Lena still holding each other near the window, both of them with the look of people waiting to find out if the floor is going to hold. You're welcome in Iron Vale, I say, both of you, when things stabilize. Mira looks up. Why? She asks, quietly, not defiant, genuinely confused. Because, I say, you didn't put me in that room. You walked past it. That's different. Neither of them speaks. I turn. Draven is right there, exactly where I left him, exactly as still, his eyes on me with that full, quiet, receiving attention. I walk toward him. He falls into step beside me without a word. We are in the corridor, past the hall, before either of us speaks. You gave them more than they deserved, he says. I gave them what the people around them needed, I say. He is quiet for a step. I know, he says. That's what I meant. I look at him. He looks at me. And then he stops walking. Right there in the corridor, in the torch-lit stone hallway of his castle, he stops and turns to face me fully, and there is something in his expression that has moved past the controlled, patient waiting I have been watching for 6 days, something that has arrived. There is something I need to tell you, he says. About the room. About what Kane found before I walked in. My chest goes tight. The mark on the wall. He goes still. You know about it. I knew you were keeping it, I say. I have been waiting. He reaches into his coat. He pulls out a folded piece of paper, not the original, which is stone and frost and gone now, but a drawing, careful and exact, rendered in charcoal by someone who understood that the original needed to be preserved in some form. He holds it out. I take it. I unfold it. And the mark I drew as a child, in frost, on the wall of a frozen room, without knowing what it meant, the mark that I traced over and over in the years of silence because something in my hands needed to make it, needed to put it somewhere, needed to leave evidence of something I could not name. I know it. I know it the way you know a word in a language you were never formally taught, but somehow already speak. It is the royal seal of the Ashvale bloodline. My hands are shaking, not from cold. How? I say. That, Draven says quietly, is a longer conversation, one I think you are ready for now. I look at the mark. I look at him, and the ground shifts under everything I have ever been told about where I came from. Completely. He sits across from me at the small table in the room with the high ceiling and the window that looks over the courtyard. The fire is lit. The rain outside is soft. Kane is at the door, not inside, just present, the way he is always present now. Steady and close and facing outward, Draven folds his hands on the table. He looks at me like a man who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has finally found the right person to set it down in front of. 23 years ago, he says, my father made an arrangement with a woman from the northern bloodlines, a woman who carried a gift so old and so rare that the elders had not seen it in 4 generations, the ability to call water, to draw rain, to make land remember how to live. I am very still. She disappeared before I was old enough to know her, he says. My father said she left. The court said she was a rumor. The elders said the gift had died with her bloodline. He pauses. None of them were telling the truth. She didn't disappear, I say. No, he says. She was taken. By a family who understood what she carried and decided that if they could not have the gift directly, they could control the person who would eventually carry it. The room is very quiet. Aldrich Arden, I say. He was her cousin, Draven says. Distant enough to have no claim to the gift, close enough to know exactly what it was when it passed to you. I press my hands flat on the table. The glow comes immediately stronger than it has been. The warmth moving up my arms and into my chest like something that has been waiting for this specific moment to arrive fully. He didn't lock me away because I smelled wrong, I say. No, Draven says. He locked me away because I smelled right. My voice is level. I am working to keep it level. Because if anyone with enough knowledge got close enough to smell what I was carrying, they would know exactly who you belong to, Draven says. Exactly what bloodline your gift was tied to. Exactly why the land responds to you the way it does. I look at the mark on the paper. The Ashvale seal, drawn in frost by a 3-year-old child who was locked in a cellar and never told a single true thing about herself. My hands are fully lit now, both of them. The glow is no longer faint and uncertain and apologetic. It is steady and warm and completely, absolutely sure of itself in the way that I am only just learning to be. My mother, I say, is alive, Draven says. She is in the Eastern Territories. She has been looking for you for 19 years. And there it is. The thing that breaks through everything, through the composure I have been building minute by minute since the moment the wall came down, through the careful, measured way I have been receiving each new piece of a life I did not know I had. It comes in through the specific sentence. She has been looking for you. Not gone. Not dead. Not someone who left. Looking. My throat closes. I do not cry. I have the particular condition of people who learned very early that crying costs more than it returns, and 19 years of that conditioning does not dissolve in a week. But my eyes go bright, and I look down at my glowing hands, and I think about a woman somewhere in the Eastern Territories who has been moving through the world for 19 years with a piece of herself missing, looking for the daughter who was taken before she could teach her what she was, what we are. When? I ask. When you are ready, Draven says. As soon as you want. I look up at him. You knew, I say. Before the frozen room. Before Frost Peak. You knew what I was. I knew something, he says carefully. I knew the gift was unaccounted for. I knew the bloodline did not simply end. I knew that whatever Cain was tracking was old and powerful and connected to something my kingdom had been missing for 7 years. He pauses. I did not know it was you, he says. I did not know her. I did not know the person. I knew a frequency, a pull. Something changes in his voice. The person is entirely your own. I sit with that. The fire pops. Outside, the rain runs soft and constant against the window. I think about 19 years in a frozen room. I think about 5 bolts on a door, and a father who called me a mistake, and a stepmother who wrinkled her nose, and half-sisters who held their breath. I think about the frost floor and the high window, and the 2 hours of gray light in the afternoons that I used to count like currency. I think about the mark I drew on the wall. Over and over, every year. Without knowing. Reaching for something I did not have a name for. I want to meet her, I say. My mother. I want to go as soon as the Frost Peak arrangements are confirmed. Done, he says immediately. And I want Cain to come. He would come regardless, Draven says. I would have no say in that. And I stop. He waits. The fire. The rain. The steady warmth between us that has been building since a frost floor and a broken wall. And a word said so quietly, it might have been an exhale. I want to know, I say slowly, what it means. That I drew your family's seal on my wall as a child. What it means for, I gesture slightly between us. This. He is very still. What do you think it means? He asks. I look at him. At this man who broke through 5 bolts and a stone wall and a 7-year drought, and my 19 years of believing I was nothing, who waited 4 days on horseback and said your decision, and stood behind me in a receiving hall, and has not once, not for a single moment, tried to make me smaller. I think, I say carefully, that some things are decided before the people involved get a vote. Something in his face opens. Not surprise. The opposite of surprise. The expression of a man hearing a truth he has been carrying alone, and has finally, simply, been joined in. He reaches across the table. His hand covers mine, both of them, the glow and the warmth, and all of it the same way he covered them in the rain on the border. He holds. Yes, he says. That is exactly what it means. Outside, the rain falls steady and easy over Iron Vale. The fountain in the courtyard runs full and clean. In the streets below, the sound of a city that has remembered how to receive water moves through the evening air, like something exhaled after a very long hold. I turn my hand over, palm up. His hand shifts to meet it, and I think about a girl in a frozen room who stopped dreaming because she stopped believing, who made herself nothing because nothing was easier to be than something they kept trying to erase, who drew a mark on the wall every year in the frost without knowing it was a name, without knowing it was a map, without knowing it was her own blood reaching forward through time toward the thing it was always moving toward. I was not broken. I was not wrong. I was not a mistaken skin that should not exist. I was a girl carrying something so powerful that the people around her spent 19 years afraid of it. And the land knew, and the rain knew, and Cain knew. 3 days out, before I was anything more than a frequency in the wind. And Draven knew the moment he crouched on that frost floor and looked at me and found, behind 19 years of surviving the unsurvivable, that I was still paying attention. His thumb traces the line of my knuckles. I lean forward, just slightly, just enough, and the last thing I think, before everything that comes next, before my mother, before the truth of my bloodline, before the full weight of what I carry and what it means and what this man beside me intends to do about it. The last thing I think is very simple. I am warm, I am seen, I am chosen, and I am never, ever going back to the cold. And that is where I leave you today. If this story moved something in you, if Blossom's journey from that frozen room to that table with her hand in his, if any piece of this felt like something you needed to hear, then this channel is exactly where you belong. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Because the stories coming to this channel are not just entertainment. They are the kind that sit with you. The kind that remind you that being hidden does not mean being nothing. That the right person will cross a kingdom for you. That the land itself will respond when you finally step into who you were always supposed to be. New stories drop regularly, and you do not want to come in halfway. Share this one with someone who needs it today. Someone who has been made to feel like the problem. Someone who has been surviving instead of living. Sometimes a story is the thing that cracks the wall before anything else can get through. And in the comments, tell me this. If you were Blossom, what is the first thing you would do the morning after you finally felt safe? The very first thing. I want to read every single answer. See you in the next story.